Well, good afternoon and welcome to the U.S. Army's Facebook Live. From the Pentagon, I'm Hank Manitras of the Army G1's office. And our topic this afternoon is the Army Combat Fitness Test, or the ACFT. It's a result of a culmination of a result of years of research in the Army's effort to optimize holistic health and fitness. And as the world's premier fighting force, it is absolutely imperative that we have cohesive teams filled with disciplined, highly skilled, talented, and most importantly, physically fit soldiers to bring our lethality to the next level. Individual readiness is the key to Army readiness, and that's what the ACFT is all about. Now, we've got a lot of questions that we've compiled over the last couple of days that you've sent in through various social media avenues. We appreciate that. We're going to try to get to as many of those as we can, and we invite you to type in your questions in the comments sections here on the Facebook page. We've got a crack team of folks behind the scenes that'll send those questions up to me, and I will ask our panel members. So why don't we go ahead and introduce the panel now. First up is the 16th Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Grinston. Less than 2 months on the job, and he's already doing a Facebook Live on what is a very important topic. So SMA, I want to thank you for being here. Yeah, next up is Command Sergeant Major Timothy Guden. He is the Command Sergeant Major for the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command, TRADOC. They oversee 32 schools in the Army under 8 centers of excellence, each of them offering a different specialty. Our third panelist today is Command Sergeant Major Edward Mitchell. He is from the Center for Initial Military Training, and if ever there was an encyclopedia of the ACFT, it is this man right here. So gentlemen, I want to thank you three for being here this afternoon. The big Army announcement today, and what I'd like to do is just have each of you offer a couple minutes or 30 seconds of your own thoughts before we jump into the questions. SMA, why don't you take it away?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank everybody on social media for joining us this afternoon. It is truly an honor to be the 16th Sergeant Major of the Army. But today we're talking about a fundamental shift in how we do our fitness culture. The Army Combat Fitness Test will improve our lethality and our readiness, and it's giving us highly trained, physically fit, and lethal squads for the future. It's 6 events that have significantly been validated over the last years, and it actually assesses 10 components of fitness that mirror about 80% of the things that we are asked to do in combat. There's still a lot of work to be done over the next few years, or the next year, to finalize the number of tasks related to the Army Combat Fitness Test for record. The ACFT will affect about 60 Army regulations, so we still have a lot of work to do to make sure we get that information correct in the regulations. TRADOC and CIMT have worked hard to lead the proponents for the ACFT, and they are analyzing the data that we're gathering from the 63 battalions and from our initial military training soldiers to optimize the ACFT. Our Army has had to adapt to change throughout our history. Today, it's a positive step toward ensuring we have the best trained, highly disciplined force in the world. So thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, SMA. Sergeant Major Guden.
Good afternoon. Right now today, TRADOC is preparing to move forward with a 1 October of 2019 implementation of testing the ACFT in all courses that are within TRADOC. We'll primarily be doing this in the basic training and the OSUT entry-level positions, but it'll also be done in the BOLIX and also in the NCOES courses. We are doing this primarily so that after we finish this FY20 of basically a diagnostic test for everybody in the Army for all 3 compos, the new soldiers that will be coming to your ranks will have experienced and tested on the ACFT, and so they will have that experience. Another thing that I would like to talk about very briefly is about some of the misconceptions that are out there. There's quite a few rumors and misconceptions that are going on out there. I hope that you take this opportunity with the 3 of us up here to send in some questions that we may be able to answer about some of those misconceptions. But some of the common ones that I hear about often are about you can't start any training with it because you don't have any equipment. And we do realize that we're still working on the equipment piece, but there is a lot of training that you can do in preparation for the ACFT. A couple of things. Number one would be just to execute some of the PRT items that are in the manual, starting with the prep drill. You can do the conditioning drills, the climbing drill, the military movement drills, and 4 for the Corps. A lot of those things will automatically help you get in the right frame of mind, a functional fitness type of mindset when it comes to performing well in the ACFT. Another one of the misconceptions out there is that if I'm on profile, I'm going to get kicked out of the Army. That is not true. You're not going to get kicked out of the Army if you're on profile. Some of these things will be determined, as the SMA said, as we go through this year of collecting data for everybody in the Army, and a lot of those Army policies will be, decisions will be made on those, but we are not going to kick everybody out of the Army that is on a profile. So I look forward to your questions. Thanks for having me, and this should be fun. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major Mitchell, it's up to you now.
Hey, thank you, sir. You know, first of all, what I'd like to say, thank you for having me here at SMA and Sergeant Major Guden. But what I want to talk about is holistic health and fitness. The ACFT is only one small component of the holistic health and fitness, which is a comprehensive, integrated, immersive health fitness system that generates lethal soldiers who are physically ready and mentally tough to go and guess what? Take care of our enemy on the modern-day battlefield in the multi-domain environment. However, this overarching concept framework encompasses all aspects of the human performance: sleep, injury prevention, and nutrition, to optimize a soldier's individual readiness. You know, we're going to do this through 5 different systems under this holistic health and fitness. You got governance, where we actually sit there and how we track, monitor, and assess soldiers in progress. We also look at programs, how we coach, teach, and mentor the soldiers and rehabilitate those soldiers. Then we look at the facilities and the equipment. You know, we do a lot of things across the Army to where we give all of our soldiers equipment and stuff to go out there and train and fight and go take care of the enemy. But we don't give them the equipment and stuff we need for them to take care of their body. So that's something we're looking at under holistic health and fitness, to give them that equipment and the equipment they need and that facility, just like a training range, where they can go, sign, get in there, and make sure they are physically fit. And then the personnel. We're looking at what personnel do you need in order to make sure that you have it at the need of where you at. For instance, if a soldier get injured when they're down at the battalion level, do they have that strength trainer or that dietitian or the behavioral health specialist that's sitting there ready to take that individual and get that person back into the fight? That's what we want. We want them on the field. We don't need them on the sideline. And the last thing is how we educate them. You know, we want to make sure that we educate them through their whole entire education system. No matter if you're a warrant officer or a soldier, that all the way through your educational system, as you go through the military, you will have that. So basically, it is a life cycle system that develops and improves every soldier's readiness. But we do this from pre-accession training all the way through their Army career, as well as to the soldier for life. So bottom line up front, we don't need soldiers on the sideline. We need them on the field. We need you in the game. And the way you get into the game is by getting in here, making sure we do this ACFT and change the culture. Thank you.
Cool. Well, gentlemen, thanks for your opening comments. I say we get right to these questions. We got a lot. A couple of the main ones that keep coming up. On average, how long is it taking units to complete the ACFT, and what are the approved alternate events and standards for each?
I'll go ahead and talk about the approved alternate events, and I'll let Sergeant Major Mitchell talk about the standard times that it's taken for units to accomplish the ACFT, administer it. The approved alternate events right now are the swim, the bike, and the swim, the row, and the bike. Each of those are approved to be alternate events for the 2-mile run. Each of those events have to be completed within 25 minutes, and the distances vary between the 3 events. For the swim, you have to complete 1,000 meters within 25 minutes. For the row, you have to be able to complete 5,000 meters in 25 minutes. And for the bike, you have to be able to complete 15,000 meters in 25 minutes. Now, here's what I will tell you, is that the idea of the alternate events was mostly developed with the mindset that these weren't not going to be a cakewalk, that you were going to have to work hard at these, just like you have to work hard on everything else with the ACFT. It's imperative that you know, for instance, a soldier just doesn't roll out of bed in the morning thinking that they got to take the ACFT and they're going to borrow somebody's bike and go jump on it and knock out 15,000 meters on the bike ride, because that's not going to happen. you will fail it if that's the preparation and the mindset that you have into this. The same thing goes within the pool and the water, and the same thing goes with the row. I very routinely use the row as a heart rate conditioner in between some of my exercises, and usually I'm trying to hit 500 meters as fast as I can. That's 500 meters. This is 5,000 meters in 25 minutes, and so this isn't something that soldiers should look at and take lightly if they are on permanent profile and they're going to be taking one of these alternate events for the 2-mile run. This is something that they have to work at and they have to prepare for. The idea was that these events would be just as difficult or more difficult to complete than the actual 2-mile run itself. So if a soldier does have a permanent profile and they cannot perform any part of the 2-mile run, that they would possibly consider doing the 2-mile run and walk at their own pace, run at their own pace to get the 2 miles complete, because these other 3 exercises are going to be pretty tough. Again, you have to be able to work at those. Again, you know, the pool and the bike, that's not anything that you can just assume that you're going to be like on vacation and go and execute, you know, having a good time on the bike and swimming in the pool. You have to work at these things. We got some of our senior leaders in the Army who are pretty good at swimming in the pool, and they did it during college and other competitive arenas in their lifetime, and it's tough for them. So this is going to be something that soldiers are going to have to understand. Now is the time to get out there and start practicing on these things and start working on these things. And that's to include all the events of the ACFT, not just necessarily the alternate events, but specifically the alternate events also if you fall into one of those categories. And I'll pass it on to Sergeant Major Mitchell for the second part of that question.
The second part of the question was, how long does it take you to actually go through and complete this test? Not counting the prep drill or the cool down, you're looking at roughly about 36 minutes of actual exercise time that you'll be doing, with about 16 minutes of rest time in between it. Because you're going to look at it, when you start doing each one of these exercises, it's going to be a grader and 4 soldiers that's going to be going through it at one time. And it's actually based upon so every soldier can get the rest they need between each one of those exercises before they begin the next one. So if you look at it all together, it's about 51 minutes actually to complete the entire exercise.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Let's talk about equipment right now. That's another big question out there, especially with the Guard and Reserve. How are we going to distribute the equipment among those units? And also the smaller installations, how are we going to field equipment with the smaller installations?
Okay. I'll start off with the equipment for the Guard and Reserves. So we've had this conversation is, well, is it going to be at the reserve centers, at all the reserve centers, all the way down to Company Battery Troop? We've got a long way to go to figure out what is the sweet spot in the right areas for that. It's like the regulations. We don't have the answers. That's why we have to start on 1 October to get some of the decision space to say, where do we have the right mix at the equipment at the right locations to make sure that it doesn't hurt our Compo 2 and 3. And as we get the equipment, we're going to push that out. We have 7 battalions in the Guard and Reserves that are actually testing right now, so that they have the equipment, they're going through, and that's going to inform us on how much equipment that we're going to need in each location. We don't have the perfect mix because it's going to be one per state, it's going to be somewhere else, so we're still working through to get the right exact number of equipment for our Compo 2 and 3.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, I just want to add one piece onto that. When we started this right here last year, I had 2 sergeant majors that actually worked in my headquarters. Michael Schultz, who used to be the USAR Sergeant Major, and we have Sergeant Major Rogers, who is a National Guard Sergeant Major. Both of them works in my headquarters. And as we was coming up with these plans of how we were going to integrate Compo 2 and 3 into this, we actually had them go out and talk to every last one of their counterparts across the entire Army from Compo 2 and 3 and came back with their concerns as we was looking at how we was going to implement this with them 7 battalions that we have in each one. So we had somebody in our headquarters at this whole time to make sure we was doing it and had all 3 compos in mind at this.
I'll add something with the equipment. So the basis of issue for the ACFT equipment that's required for the test is 16 lanes of equipment per battalion headquarters. Obviously, not everybody has that right now, and we, as the SMA stated, we still have this this year to figure out exactly what is going to be the sweet spot and where they're put at. But I will tell you this, is that a lot of this is going to come down to commander's decision, geographical locations, and the actual missions of certain units and where they're at. The Army senior leadership cannot come out with a cookie cutter policy on how the equipment gets distributed within those organizations, because that may not fit for every type of organization. Even within TRADOC, we have Compo 2 and Compo 3 like elements when we talk about U.S. Army Cadet Command and U.S. Army Recruiting Command, as we've got small groups of soldiers that are out there all over the place, and they don't necessarily fall under a nice and neat battalion footprint. And so we have to figure out exactly where these lanes of equipment are going to be dispersed, and you may not have all 16 lanes assembled at a battalion headquarters, wherever that battalion headquarters is at. They may be dispersed however the battalion commander and the CSM feel that it's best fit for soldiers to execute and use and train on those items of equipment.
All right, our next question comes right off of our Facebook Live feed. How will soldiers do a 30, 60, and 90-day ACFT prior to NCOES when setting up different equipment is required, considering it's onesies and twosies that need to test at different times depending on school locations?
First of all, that is not it's not a TRADOC requirement. That is not an Army requirement to do the 30, 60, 90-day APFT prior to a professional military education school, NCOPDS. So that's a unit requirement that units are putting on them. The requirement is you're going to have to pass the ACFT at the NCOPDS, and that is the requirement. If units want to do that 30, 60, 90 days, that'll be a unit responsibility to determine how that will be implemented.
Thanks, SMA. What is the plan to revamp postpartum timelines?
Okay.
And I know that was going to come up. We knew it was coming.
Yeah. I've received this question 3 times probably in the last week as a Sergeant Major of the Army. So that's the good news is we actually need the time. Again, we're going to start this on 1 October to determine exactly what those policies are going to be. There's 60 policies that we need to look at, and maybe we need to change. However, we still have to do the analysis. When you're on a temporary profile, the current policy is that depending on the type of profile, as long as if it's for promotion points, if you look at the promotion reg, you could get all the way up to 2 years, depending on the type of profile that you're on, that your promotion points will be valid as long as you have a PT test in that last 24 months. So in other words, I take an APFT, if for some reason you become pregnant, you get your 9 months, and then 6 months. Right now, it's still going to be 6 months, but we still have a year to actually determine what is that going to be. Does that regulation stay the same? It's just like the standards have changed. Even in the last year, we looked at what we were going to start with, and we've made adjustments based off the data that we received. We're going to make adjustments again until we get to October of next year, because we need the time to see, do we have the right timeline? Currently, the policy is 6 months. I'm not sure that needs to go longer or not until we do the data analysis to see. And the other question is, well, it was really hard to meet those timelines when it was the APFT. But we haven't given you the enablers, we haven't trained for this, and some people haven't even taken the ACFT yet. So some people may be able to do it 4 months, 5 months, but we need the time to get the analysis right. The current policy is in effect. You get 6 months. If we need to adjust that, I think the statistical data will help inform us on whether we need to extend that or not.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that, or are we good to go?
Oh, that's good.
I think we just need more data. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's what this new validation phase that we're entering is all about, is collecting more data to see where we need to shape this and make adjustments. Next question offline is, will the screening table for the height, weight, and body composition be reevaluated? I would imagine it's the same answer. We're still looking at these things.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We have concurrence across the table, so that's the answer. We're still looking at those things.
Well, the Army Combat Fitness Test is first of all, it's very good for the Army, and something that we need to do, which is, like Sergeant Major Mitchell said, we need to look at the holistic health and fitness, and how are we going to be highly trained, disciplined, and fit soldiers. And it's not just about the activity that we do, it's also about the nutrition that we eat. So as we look at the Army Combat Fitness Test, the Army Body Composition Program is in correlation with that. That's the second piece, is am I in the right health? Am I my fitness in the weight that I carry? So we've always looked at what we're going to do to the Army Body Composition. And it's not necessarily tied to the Army Combat Fitness Test right now. It's just like we've always looked at, do we have the right mix of body weight versus how I tape? That question is always available, and it's always been reassessed or assessed. It's come up in the past years, and it's not actually tied to the Army Combat Fitness Test.
SMA, do we have any numbers on the amount or percentage of injuries and profiles that resulted over the last year of the testing phase? Did you guys collect any of that data?
I'll turn it over for this data, but I will go back to what we were looking at from the Forces Command. And what we found is, as we looked at giving the proper enablers and doing the exercises properly, we've seen musculoskeletal injuries go down when we looked at what we were doing for what was called the Soldier Readiness Test, which is not the Army Combat Fitness Test. That's why what Sergeant Major Mitchell was saying, how important it is to get some of the exercises done correctly, and how you do the exercises, and giving you some of the enablers where you have a registered dietitian, you have an occupational therapist, or you have a strength and conditioning coach, someone that can guide you through this. And that's why that other data is still important too. Some of the folks don't even have those things that we've given to those 63 battalions. So when you look at doing those, you may get stronger, and you might find out, because you've got some of the enablers, you can do this test actually easier because you got somebody to guide you with it that's been a resident expert. But I'll give over to the data from the CIMT.
Well, as of right now, of the 63 battalions we have been testing all the way up to today, there has been no one injured or had a profile coming off of taking the ACFT as of right now, not one person. So what I will tell you is, it's because, we do have we got 16 MTT teams that goes around, mobile training teams, that goes around, that train the 63 battalions that we have out there on the ACFT, as well as train the rest of the Army. And what their goal was to go out there and show them, just like the SMA said, the standard. How you need to do it, how you need to execute it, and how you need to take this right here. And once they made sure that all of the levels 3, 2, and 1s was trained, guess what? That's why we have not seen any injuries or profiles that came from it today.
That's outstanding news. And I guess the next question kind of leads right into what you both have already talked about, and that is, what are the plans to help soldiers build up the ACFT? What types of drills might change in leading up to that?
I'll start off, and I know that both the SMA and Sergeant Major Mitchell probably have quite a bit of information also, but I talked about this initially with my opening comments, and I remember, I say this quite oftenly when I'm in groups and I'm talking to them, but I do remember I was a brigade sergeant major when PRT was introduced to the Army in 2009, and I will tell you that it was not received well throughout the Army. And I would tell you, and this is my personal opinion, I would tell you that as a result of that, we have soldiers in the Army today that are not properly equipped physically to take the ACFT with confidence that they're going to do well on it. And primarily, most of that comes from a lack of attention to the core of our bodies, because as it is with the APFT, a sit-up is not necessarily a great test event to measure out your core strength. It might be able to tell how fast you can move up and down in a supine position, but it doesn't necessarily determine your core strength. What I will tell you is that in at least the first 5 events of the ACFT, Whether you're realizing it or not, if you're not engaging your core, then you're probably going to get lower back pain and upper back pain and leg pain and those kinds of things that are going to be minor ailments. But I would tell you that there's lots of exercises out there. A lot of it, really, your imagination is the only thing that's going to limit you to what you can do. I've seen all kinds of incredible ideas out there as I'm going around. What soldiers have put together, things that they can do with or without pull-up bars, with or without drag bags, with or without hex bars. Any of the actual equipment, there's still a lot of good training that you can do to work on preparing yourself for the ACFT, and that's also why I said let's not just wait for the equipment. Let's start using our imagination. Let's start getting after it. You can keep with the military mindset and use ammo crates and ammo cans and sandbags and skidcos and that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff that you can do also. I saw the other day, in place of the drag bag, I saw just a standard rope that was pulling 245-pound kettlebells around, which came up to the 90 pounds. And that's going to get you, what you really need to do is you need to get in the practice of doing that backwards run when it comes to the sprint drag carry piece of it. That's what I see, that the last 25 meters of the sprint drag carry is what seems to break off a lot of people, because they can get the first half done, they turn around and it's really hard, slow going to get back. But yeah, again, lean forward, start doing those things and start working. Your body is going to be sore, a good sore, when you start doing these things, because you're working muscle groups and parts of your body that you haven't touched before. So don't wait for the scheduled ACFT. That's going to be a diagnostic for everybody during FY20. Don't wait for that to come around before you experiment and start training on some of these things.
Well, gentlemen, over the last couple of days, the next questions come up quite a bit with regard to the pass-fail rate and the data that we've collected over the last year, particularly with the fail rate. Did you see anything in there that might make you want to change the scoring standard for any of the events?
I'll excuse me. I'll address this a little bit of the pass-fail, and I'll use this as an example of what we've done in the past with the current APFT. We've adjusted the scale for the current APFT since I have been in the military. Granted that I've been in the military for a couple of days, a little bit, but we've adjusted those scales, and I go back to, we've adjusted the scale in the last year, and it's got to be an informed decision on what we're going to do. So originally, at some point, what you don't really know is that we said, do we even need a scale? So let's just do the ACFT and let the information inform us on what the standard should be. What's going to be the high and the low? And then we decided, no, we need a scale. We just always got to grade ourselves on what the scale is going to be. So there's got to be a standard. So we implemented a standard, and then everybody gets wrapped into that. So we got to look at the information. We got to open it up, and then we can determine exactly where the bar needs to be. Do we have it right? But we've made adjustments, and I'll let one of these two, Trey, our sergeant major, talk about the adjustments we've already made.
I'll talk real briefly about some of the things that we've seen with the pilot that went on with the 63 battalions. The number one exercise, the number one event that is hurting the Army right now as a whole is the leg tuck. It is, and it goes back to what I was talking about with the core exercise. It is the leg tuck. It takes one leg tuck to pass, one leg tuck to pass, and we have a large number of soldiers that cannot pass the leg tuck. A lot of this is, and again, it goes back to, you can't compare this to the sit-up of the APFT because it measures a completely different muscle group within your core. But there's some other things that are measured with the leg tuck that we haven't measured before also, such as hand grip, such as arm strength. We've always instituted pull-ups in a ad hoc type of exercise when it comes to physical fitness, but it's never been part of our test with the APFT. And some people have not done push-up. Have not done pull-ups, and those are some of the exercises that some of the muscle groups that are used in those exercises with hand grip and with pull-ups that contribute to not being able to do a leg tuck. So there's a lot of things that go into this, but I'll tell you the leg tuck is the biggest one. So for soldiers that are small in stature and don't have a upper body strength that can sustain themselves during 1 or 2 pull-ups, consecutive pull-ups, even 3 pull-ups, the leg tuck is going to be a challenge. And I would suggest that you get on the bar now and you start developing that arm strength and that grip strength in preparing for the leg tuck. Sergeant Mitchell.
All right, thank you so much. I just want to add one piece to this. The 63 battalions that we have testing in the first phase of this right here, you have to realize of the 63 battalion, they all was untrained. We just came out with an Armed Combat Fitness test because we know that it's trained the entire body to where you used to do push-ups, sit-ups, and 2-mile run. And we came out and we said, hey, 2 of the vents are the same. Push-ups and the run is still there. All we did, we changed one out and added 3 others. But the bottom line up front is, guess what? There's an untrained force that we gave this test to for the first initial phase of it. So guess what's going to happen? Did we expect for some people to actually fail? Absolutely. Because nobody has trained on it. Just like Sergeant Major in the Army said, and just like Sergeant Major Guden said, you have to train for the test you want. And you cannot go out and just say you're going to just do it like in 2 days and get ready for a PT test. You have to continue to get in the gym, or you got to get out there and use equipment if you don't have it. I set up two sessions with the most senior leaders across TRADOC, and that's every nominal sergeant major and general officer. In the session that I set up, we did not use the equipment that we have for the ACFT to get after the same movements that you would have to do for the Armed Combat Fitness test. And guess what? Every last one of them went through it, and it was challenging. But guess what? You can do the same thing out there. Are we going to sit up and get better? Yes. Do I think that the data might change the scoring? Absolutely. Because today, you got to understand, we're only testing 63 battalion. We're going to start 1 October, and now we're going to start testing the rest of the Army to where you're going to look at it, active duty Army is going to take 2 diagnostics, and you're going to have the Army Reserve, the National Guard is going to take 1 diagnostic. With all of that data coming in, it's going to validate what we're doing and making sure that we got this scoring criteria correct. So why? We need the data to come in. We need everybody out there to guess what? Hey, ain't no need to talk about the ACFT. I just need you to talk about how you get out there and start training for it.
Yeah, I want to do one more readdress on this. Is, don't take what I said as, the standards may become easier. They may become more stringent. Let's look at what we've already looked at with the Blackbird. It was 180 for the minimum for the 3-rep max deadlift. And over the data that we've received, now we're saying it needs to be 200, at 200 pounds. So we've increased the standards on some of those things based off the information that we've seen. And we can see that. This is going to be a hard combat fitness test. We need to change fundamentally how we train our bodies for combat. That's why it's called the Army Combat Fitness Test. So when we say we're going to address those standards, we are going to address them. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to become easier, but we just need to evaluate where those standards are going to be. The ultimate goal is actually, over time, we raise the standards because we've trained our bodies the appropriate way, and we're seeing our fitness levels become better over time for everyone in the Army.
Talking about some of the events in the test, we got a couple questions. I'll try to put these together so we can get a good answer. One, why is the 2-mile run still a part of the test after adding additional exercises? Is there a reason we can't do a 1-mile run? And with regard to the deadlift, is there any chance that we're going to be allowed to wear a lifting belt to prevent back injuries or gloves for better grip? And finally, is the walking 10 an alternate event?
The what?
Walking what?
Walking 10. I'm not sure. They didn't clarify that, but...
So hopefully they'll come back and clarify the walking 10.
We can understand the question. We can get you a good answer.
Okay.
But on the first 2?
Yeah. Okay, I'll address the part about the 2-mile run. Could we do a 1-mile run? Yes. We could also do, half a mile, but we're not going to. We're going to do a 2-mile run, and some people would say, well, scientifically, I can test, cardiovascular endurance maybe with a 1 mile run, and I acknowledge that. But we're going to do 2 miles, and because let's see how we do. Let's gut check. Let's go out and assess ourselves, and after those 6 events, can I maintain a 2 mile endurance run? And we're not going to go back to a 1 mile. It's going to stay a 2 mile run. And it's gonna test your endurance. And do you have the ability to kind of, I think it's a little bit of a mental capacity to kind of force your body to get through that event. So it's gonna stay a 2 mile run.
The second part of that question referred to equipment. Yeah, the weight belt,
gloves.
Gloves are going to be authorized based off of the physical fitness uniform. So. That's not changing. If somebody's asking if they can have specific grip gloves or workout gloves or the gloves that most common weightlifters use with the fingertips cut off, that's not part of the PT uniform, so that wouldn't be authorized. And as far as the belt goes, there is no additional equipment that can be used when taking the ACFT other than what I just kind of described already with the approved Army policy on the fitness uniform as per temperate weather and so forth, with gloves and hat and the improved physical fitness uniform. I'm sorry, not IPFU, APFU. So that's basically what you have. There's not going to be anything else. I don't know. I never saw anybody wearing a weight belt yet, or trying to wear it. Now, one thing that we can address off of this is proper form, and Sergeant Major Mitchell did talk about this already also. So somebody would think about having a weight belt so that they could prevent injury and that sort of thing. So as we develop this, as our NCOs get more knowledgeable, as the formations out there get more reps under their belts, as they get more reps on administering it, on NCO supervising it, on administering the actual test itself, you are going to see soldiers become more comfortable with performing some of these events. Now, you would use a weight belt in doing the max deadlift. We have a hex bar. I'm not going to say that the hex bar is a bar that is going to prevent injury. It's dummy proof because you can still get hurt doing it. However, if you're doing the max deadlift with the hex bar, it is a pretty safe and designed bar for making sure that you have the appropriate position when you're getting ready to do the deadlift itself. And again, that's what the graders are there for. That's what the instructors are there for. That's why they've been they know to look at your knees to make sure that your knees are not going to buckle in when you're getting ready to exert the energy to lift up on the weight of the max deadlift. And there's other key things to look for also when it comes to that. But the other thing too is the knowledge about how these things work. And for instance, the max deadlift is not necessarily about lifting, it's about pushing with your legs to get that weight up off the ground. Exactly. The minute that you think about lifting is when you can, when that energy can get proportion to your lower back, and that's when the injuries can happen. So it's about understanding how to use your muscles to lift up on the weight. To push down on the weight to actually get it up off the ground versus using your lower back. But yeah, so no weight belts. Good try.
The only thing I would add to it is it's almost the same thing you have for the Army physical fitness test. Is if a medical doctor prescribes something to you, say you have to have, like most people have these knee braces and ankle brace that they want to wear. If a doctor said that's what you need, then that's something that, guess what, you be the authorized to use it. But I guarantee you, a doctor's not going to tell you you're going to need a weight belt. They might give you something else, but it won't be a weight belt.
Next question. If a soldier becomes delinquent during the 12-month period of non-record testing, what's the way forward? Are they flagged? Are they barred from reenlistment? I'm guessing the question is, if they fail the diagnostic, what's going to happen?
It's just a diagnostic. That's what normally happens with a diagnostic APFT, is normally nothing happens. So the Army regulation says it's a diagnostic. Therefore, there would be no flagging actions. There's no guidance. if a soldier doesn't pass the ACFT, they still have to take the APFT. So everybody should take the APFT one last time for record in October or November or when it's appropriate, and that will last for 1 year while we're going through the test of taking the ACFT. And if a soldier doesn't pass the ACFT, then there'd be no action because the APFT is your valid record for record, a physical fitness test for the Army.
Well, that makes total sense. With the ACFT going live October 1st, 2020, and the next Master Sergeant Board being in November of 2020, will we have time to get a full record ACFT uploaded before the board convenes?
That normally depends on your unit. So again, if you've got a valid APFT for record, and then we go live on 1 October of 2020, all those records aren't immediately wiped clean. We've never done the APFT that. We never just said, okay, you're good on 1 October. And some people don't take it on that date. If you have a valid APFT, there's going to be a period of time that you have to take the next for record APFT, just like in the past. If that goes out of tolerance, then whatever the tolerance is, you need to be within the tolerance and the guidance for that board. But we're not going to immediately on 1 October 2020 just invalidate all the APFTs unless you get something else.
And when it comes to the window that you're referring to with the board and the start of FY, this is for next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at the end of FY20, the beginning of FY21, there's nothing that's going to stop unit leaders and commanders, for those type of people that write reports. There's nothing that's going to stop them from adding into an NCOER or an OER about how well you did on that ACFT that was a diagnostic. And SMA already alluded that the APFT is already going to be on record, and it's not going to be just completely wiped away because we started 1 October. So I mean, there is still a way, if that's what your concern is, to how do you get I don't know, maybe you're going to be the next 600 and you want to make sure that that's annotated. So, it can always get put in your NCOER, and we'll make sure you get kudos for that.
Yeah, and this goes back to those same 60 regulations that we kind of have to update. Because in the regulation right now, it references, are you getting a 300 on the APFT? This is how many promotion points you got to get. And it goes back to that. So we still have to update all that. We have to get it out. What's the system record? Currently used DTMS, putting in ACFT in the DTMS. Right now, the scales, I don't think they've got that updated yet. So that's another one of those things of the regulations we got to work out. So, more to follow. It's going to, we're not going to flip the switch and everybody gets wiped clean. 1 November 2020, if you didn't take the new current ACFT in that 30 days, is that going to prevent you from going to the board? That's one of those things we're going to work out, but I'm going to assume we're not going to just wipe your slate clean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens if a soldier fails in his or her group, like black, silver, gold? Are they going to be allowed to test in a different group, or how is that going to play out?
So, again, we're still working on what the policies are. Currently, if you don't pass your APFT, you would be flagged. If you do pass your APFT and you have a permanent profile, and you're allowed, but you can't do certain things within your MLS, you would have to reclass. But again, that goes back to those policies and regulations, and that's why we need the year to inform us on where we're going to have to go with the policies. Are we going to, if you fail the APFT, you would be flagged. If you fail the ACFT, at some point you're going to be flagged. But you're saying if I don't meet the gold black standard, but I still meet the gold standard, would you stay in your MOS? That's one of those policies that we're going to have to determine at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any thoughts to adding instructions on how to grade the ACFT into the NCO PDS curriculum? That's a good question, since NCOs are the trainers of the Army.
Well, honestly, at this point, no, we have not considered putting that into the POI for NCOES at this point. our focus right now is to make sure that this past FY is to make sure that the 63 battalions had as much instruction and information as they could to be as successful in getting us the data that we needed. And likewise, FY20 is going to be a really busy year when it comes to the ACFT piece of it, as everybody has alluded to already. It's essential that we lean forward and we get as much accurate data so that when SMA and the secretary and the chief are up to make decisions on some of these things with the policies that need to be adjusted, that they are informed with the best up-to-date information that they can. That's not to say that wouldn't happen in the future with implementing something like that into NCOES, but we don't necessarily need to do everything all right now. Right now, the focus is to make sure that every single soldier does their very best at performing 2 ACFTs 6 months apart within FY20. That's really all that the entire Army needs to be focused on. The leadership that's responsible for certain headquarters and oversight, and with the Army senior leadership, they'll be the ones that make sure that all the right decisions are made, and if need be, with the Commandant out at the Non-Commissioned Officer Leadership Center of Excellence and with the other centers of excellence with the NCO academies, we will come up with a process to implement instruction, if need be, into the NCOES and into the NCO-PDS system so that all NCOs that are going through there understand how to do it. But again, that's not our focus right now. Our focus right now is to make sure that we are setting up everybody in the Army with the best success that they can to do the very best on their 2 ACFTs that they're required to do.
So, Major Mitchell, can you go over how do you get certified to test?
Yes. Okay. Right now, how you get certified SMA is that we have an MTT that comes out, and the MTT will normally come to your installation, and the team will get out there and they will have 16 individuals that they teach at level 3. Level 3 is what we're looking for, is like your MFTs. If you have an MFT inside your organization, we would teach them individuals how to go out there and actually create level 2s is the ones that can be your NCOICs and your ICs, and then your level 1s is the ones that actually they watch them grade and test, and then the ones who will actually be the ones your evaluators. But just to add on to this, we do have coming out of CIMT, we did give everybody out here a field testing guide that came out September of 2018. We also gave you a call manual that came out that also had the ACFT in it, as well as we have the 7-22 that's right now is dated 1 October 2012. We got a new one coming out that's going to be broken down to where you can actually grab that documentation up, and it will teach you and show you exactly how you need to grade, test, and evaluate every soldier that you need to test on the ACFT. Now, all of that should be in place before 1 October before it goes out across the whole entire Army. Why? Because we understand everything cannot go into the NCO or PDS. We understand that. But we, as an initial military trainer, is going to make sure, since we are the proponent, that you can have a documentation in your hand and you can use, and you can see pictures. A lot of people don't do anything with just words. You need pictures. So we're going to have pictures so you can sit up and say, this is how you grade, you coach them, you teach them, and you evaluate them so they can make sure they're taking the ACFT to standard. And everybody will have that inside of their hands to be able to do that, as well as you can also download it off of the CIMT webpage.
So 3 things to close out this one is, number 1, you can get trained on a train the trainer. As that rolls down, you get your organizations, you get your installation, you get train the trainer. That's number 1. And then number 2 is, do we actually need to take everybody in the NCO-PDS and teach them as NCOs how to give the Army Combat Fitness Test as we go forward? We don't do that currently for the current APFT. We don't teach you how to grade the push-up, sit-up, or the run. That's a unit responsibility. And I believe as this becomes the for record APFT in the next year, we're going to have enough folks train the trainer, and then it's a basic responsibility in NCO over time that we'll have plenty of folks that go through this. Once you get 1 or 2 reps underneath your belt, you'll understand how to do that, and it may not be necessary to implement this in the NCO PDS.
Cool.
Got a couple of questions coming in now online, and they want to know, what is the reasoning behind the 6 events? Why those 6? And how does it make the soldier more capable, especially the 2-mile run? And why did the push-up change?
Okay. You can start.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, we did a study. And the study that we did, we actually went out and we used the BISPER, which is the baseline research study that we actually used. And what that actually did, it went out to test and see what we need to do. But the test that we're doing today is based off your warrior task and battle drills and your common soldier's test. What we did, we went out and found out, what do a soldier need to do when they're in combat? When we started looking at that, that is what we based the 6 events that we have today. And the reason being because the 3-event PT test was not doing it. That's why you see a lot of individuals out there today that has a lot of back injuries and so forth. Because that's what we sit up and we do the push-ups and sit-ups and 2-mile run, but then we send you out to combat and we put you on with IOTV, almost 100 pounds on your back, and you never did anything to train your back, to train out your total body. So that's what it was all based upon, is actually what are the warrior tasks that you would have to conduct in combat, and what body parts that you would actually need to strengthen up in order for you to go out there and make sure that happens. So that is what it came off, and that's what we use.
So for the reason that we adjusted the push-up from the hand release push-up to the arm extension push-up was primarily because of, really it comes down to the core and the ability for soldiers to maintain one steady line from the base of their neck all the way down to their heels. And it really, again, it goes back to the strengthening of our core as it pertains to being in the front leaning rest position. What we did see is that either because they were already tired at doing it, but with the hand release push-up, when the hands were directly underneath the shoulders and to raise them up, a lot of times after they've been executing a few repetitions, the soldiers would start to get a little lazy in that movement, and instead of raising their hands up to their shoulders, they would start arching their back at their lower back, creating the gap that they needed in between the ground and their hands. And that automatically led to an improper push-up, because then they would start leading with their shoulders versus a nice straight plank, a nice straight line that we require. And then another reason for eliminating and not doing the hand release push-up really came down to the ability of a grader to be able to see. Most of our fitness tests are done in early morning hours throughout the majority of the Army, and a lot of times those are in dark areas. A lot of times it's on grass or whatever type of terrain, and sometimes it's hard to see exactly how much space has been developed in between with the soldier raising their hand off the ground, versus when they extend their hands out, you can definitely see that their hands are off the ground, because there's not any way that they're going to be able to maintain that moving their hands out with keeping their palms on the ground. So that was pretty much the 2 main reasons why we went to eliminated the hand release push-up.
And I just want to make sure I make one correction. I said BISPER. What it is the Baseline Soldier Physical Readiness Requirement Study that we sent out for the Army. What actually came back, and we tested the warrior task and battle drills that you is commonly used inside of combat, and that's what came up with the Army Combat Fitness Test of what you need to do, which is based off your components of fitness that the SMA was talking about, the 10 components of fitness that you actually use, and which one did we actually need to use inside of this. So that's what it was all based upon, and that's what we got our research and our data from, to saying this is what the events need to come up with.
And specifically, the last piece about the 2-mile run, it's about cardio endurance in combat. And sometimes you're going to need some speed and agility, and other times you're going to need some endurance. Mm-hmm. So we can't, we could, have you walk, 3 hours and do a 12-mile foot march. But there is a level of endurance that needs to be replicated, and the 2-mile run is the replication that we're using for cardio endurance that replicates what you would need to be and do in combat.
SMA, has there been any discussion on making the height and weight standards gender neutral as well?
Not as of yet.
Okay. Got about 5 minutes left in our program, so we're going to try to get through as many of these questions as we can. The answers we're trying to get very detailed to make sure we give you the right information. So if we don't get to all of your questions and answers, we'll make sure that we've got folks posting online well after we're off the air. So keep pumping your questions in. I'm enjoying reading these. These are fantastic questions. I guess the next question would be, is it true that soldiers with permanent profiles must, at a minimum, achieve the gold level for the 3-repetition max deadlift, the sprint, drag, carry, and 2-mile run? Does that mean you'll be on the gold standard regardless of MOS?
So yes, well, I'll talk about the 3 events. We talked about the alternate events for the run, but if you have a valid permanent profile that prevents you from taking an event, you must take the 3 events that you just mentioned. You must do the 3-rep max deadlift, you must do sprint, drag, carry, and you have to do either the 2-mile run, the row, the bike, or the swim. That you have to do those 3 events. If you can't do those 3 events, you're not taking the ACFT, and that's not a valid ACFT. And as for the gold or the permanent profile standards,
Yep.
I believe that is correct.
Okay, they're telling me we're just about out of time. For one last question, I'll direct that to you, SMA. In your opinion, ACFT good for the Army?
Yes, I think that's a fairly easy question. I think it's great for the Army. I had to take it to be the Sergeant Major of the Army. So, you know, that doesn't really define the question whether it's good for the Army or not, just because I took it, you know, as a requirement to become the Sergeant Major of the Army. This is really good for the Army. And I look at every one of those events that I do for the Army Combat Fitness Test, and I can have a direct correlation to some event that happened to me in combat. I've had to lift heavy things, sometimes more than 3 times. I usually ended up in some kind of sprint at some point. I was on the ground, sometimes because somebody might be shooting at me. I had to push myself off the ground and then go and sprint. And then sometimes I drug some things along the ground, and I had to pull or lift myself up to get over obstacles. So I look, and I definitely had to have some endurance in some of the heat and some of the equipment that we have. So I really believe this is where we need to go for the Army. This is great for the Army. It's not just good, it's great for the Army to make sure that we have highly trained, disciplined, and fit soldiers that are going to win on today's modern battlefield. I think as you all know, if you want to maintain your level of being the greatest Army in the world, everybody wants to knock you off. And so I think doing the same thing we've always done is not the right answer. In order to be the greatest Army in the world, to maintain that level, we're going to need to change how we do our fitness. And I think this is great for the United States Army.
SMA, want to thank you for that. That's a great way to close this out. Sergeant Major Guden, Sergeant Major Mitchell, thank you both for being here. Thank the 3 of you for participating this afternoon right here on the Army's Facebook Live. We're going to continue to stay online, even though we're not broadcasting anymore. We'll stay online to answer as many questions as we can. And before we go, I'd just like to say thank you to the United States Army Band Pershing Zone and their production staff for helping us this afternoon with the Army's Facebook Live. From Washington, I'm Hank Manitrez. Thanks for watching.